Fantastic. On behalf of the Western Norway University of Applied Sciences, the Norwegian Embassy, and the Sri Lanka Energy Managers Association, I welcome all of you to this very fitting and timely seminar. This is the inauguration of the Clean Energy Seminar, the establishment of Norway-Sri Lanka Research Consortium on Clean Energy Technologies. Well, let me right at the outset thank each and every one of you for your presence here today. Thank the media for being here today. And I'm made to understand the Norwegian television is also here today. Warm welcome to you in covering this event. And well, for me, it's an honor, privilege, and a pleasure to be associated with this very special occasion. Let me right at the outset invite our dignitaries to take their seats at the head table, starting off, of course, with the Ambassador of Norway in Sri Lanka, His Excellency Torbjorn Gorstad Sather. Your Excellency, can we have you take your seat? Let's put our hands together, give him a round of applause. Can I also invite Professor R. Vigneswaran, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Jaffna, who's here with us. Please go ahead. Let's show our appreciation. I also have great pleasure in welcoming and inviting the Rector of the Western Norway University of Applied Sciences, Professor Berit Rockne. Madam, all yours. It's my pleasure also to welcome and invite Professor Dalan Veladupille, Project Coordinator, Western Norway University of Applied Sciences. Professor. And last but not least, the President, Sri Lanka Energy Managers Association, Mr. Ronald Comister. Not sit for too long, because I, as the compere, have welcomed all of you, but to formally deliver the welcome address and make the opening remarks, I have the pleasure of inviting this personality, who is the President of Sri Lanka Energy Managers Association. He is also the Deputy General Manager, Research and Development of the Ceylon Electricity Board. He's an engineer by profession, and he passed out from the University of Moratuwa, and he possesses 25 years experience in the industry, in generation, transmission, distribution, and demand-side management. So without further ado, I have the pleasure of inviting Engineer Ronald Comister. Everybody, put your hands together for a round of applause.
Excellency Torbjorn, the members of the head table, distinguished delegation from Norway, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen. Today, 9th May 2018, on which we are about to commence a seminar on clean energy technologies. This is a timely topic the whole world is discussing, debating, and showing a tremendous interest. These discussions, debates, and interests are very much relevant to Sri Lanka too. Many different thoughts of schools are being discussed and debated at present in Sri Lanka. Why all these? Because we ultimately need a sustainable development. Economy, environment, and society, all three must be in equilibrium in order to achieve a sustainable development. Further, the Paris COP21 results internationally intended nationally determined contributions, INDCs, of the countries to become first nationally determined contributions, NDCs. Clean energy technologies will play a vital role in this regard. With this background, in the world arena and Sri Lankan landscape, Western Norway University of Applied Science, HVL, has recently signed a MOU on higher education and research collaboration with University of Jaffna, Sri Lanka in clean energy technologies. This is a fact heartening to note, because researchers will become a catalyst in furthering the journey of integrating clean energy technologies. In Sri Lanka at present, there are limitations in integrating clean energies, technically and economically. Grid stability, power quality, and economic vulnerability are some of to be mentioned. Remedies have to be pursued. Researches at different levels are to be conducted in order to find remedies. In the light of the above, the establishment of Norway-Sri Lanka Research Consortium on Clean Energy Technology is commendable. Private sector participation and its collaboration with research institutions will yield positive results for both the private sector and research institutions. So, we are here today to witness the possibilities in difficulties. The Norwegian Embassy has entrusted SLIMA, Sri Lanka Energy Association, to make this seminar a real happening. What is SLEMA and what does SLEMA do? Sri Lanka Energy Association was founded in 1984 by a group of professionals to promote efficiency and rational use of energy. Regional and international energy experts and organizations are interacting with SLEMA as one of the pivotal organizations in the field of energy efficiency. The Ambassador of Norway, His Excellency Thorbjørn, the members of the head table, distinguished delegation from Norway, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen. You all are welcome today for this exploratory, wonderful seminar. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We continue with our program, and to give us the project introduction and the objectives, I have the pleasure of inviting the coordinator of the Clean Energy Seminar. He is also the head of the research group, Advanced Nanomaterials for Clean Energy and Health Applications at the Western Norway University of Applied Sciences. He is a professor in physics and technology at hvl. And without further ado, I have the pleasure of inviting Professor Dadan Veladupillai, professor in physics and technology. Everybody put your hands together for a round of applause.
Dear Honorable State Minister of Finance, Honorable Eran Vikramaratne, His Excellency, the Royal Norwegian Ambassador in Sri Lanka, Honorable Thorbjørn Gaustad Sathir, Vice Chancellor of Western Norway University of Applied Sciences, Professor Berit Rukner, Vice Chancellor of Jaffna University, Professor Vigneswaran, and distinguished delegates. It's a pleasure for me to stand here and give you a glimpse of what are the activities we have had in our projects. As you all know, historically, we are at a turning point as far as clean energy technologies are concerned. We know that there is going to be an energy demand. The world population is increasing. We have already reached 7.6 billion. By 2040, we are going to be around 9.3 billion. At the same time, today, nearly 17% of the world population, they don't have access to electricity. That is around 1.3 billion people. At the same time, we see all these climatic changes due to carbon dioxide and so forth. So there is an absolute need that we concentrate on, we focus on clean energy technologies. As we all know, the UN, they have these sustainable development goals. Affordable clean energy is one of these 17 goals. So the international community is very much concerned on focusing in clean energy technologies. So we, Norway and Sri Lanka, have obligations to focus on renewable and clean energies as well. So the thing is, as far as Norway is concerned, we are blessed with hydropower. So over 96% of the electricity is produced by hydropower in Norway. So we are in a very good situation. But even though our government and our state is very much focused on shifting our economy to a green economy. At the same time, we know in Sri Lanka, the Sri Lankan state is very much obliged, and they are very much concerned, and they are working on to be 100% rely on clean energy by 2050. So this is a great ambition, great aim. So to reach these goals, both nations have a lot of challenges to face. So one of the challenges is that we have to educate people. That is very important. We must have a competent workforce in these countries. That is very important. And the second thing is, as we say, the clean energy has to be affordable to everyone. So it has to be cheap. And another important factor is the civil awareness. So these are the main factors we have to work on. So in that case, I feel that the universities around the world, universities in Sri Lanka and universities in Norway, we have a role to play. And at the same time, the private sector has a role to play as well. So we have to work together. So in that case, we got a collaborative project. We got some funding from NORPART program from Norway to work, to collaborate with University of Jaffna. We received it last year. And then we saw that we needed capacity building at University of Jaffna. At the same time, we thought that we need input from the private sector. So we aim to establish a research consortium which consists of both representatives from academia, and of course from the private sector. That is our main aim now. So we received a funding from the Norwegian Embassy. We are very much thankful to our ambassador, Honorable Ambassador. He was very keen that we work together with the industries, the private sector, and we must, the research which we carry on at the universities, it must go in hand with the industry. Because the universities, we can't just, the researchers, we can't just work in laboratories and just produce something which is not usable for the public. So in that case, to have innovations, new products and new ideas, we need input from the industry. We need you all, the industry people, and we need you as mentors, we need you as supervisors, we need your projects. We could solve the universities in Sri Lanka and Norway. We will be able to give you some technical solution for your problems. In that case, we also need our students to be placed in your companies. So it's a win-win situation for everyone. If we want to succeed in clean energy technologies, we have to work together. So that is our aim. So I would love to show some of these. We are working with University of Peradeniya as well. We are collaborating with the University of Peradeniya. At the same time, we are collaborating with Coimbatore Institute of Technology in India as well. So some of the main aspects I want to show here. For the past 1.5 years, we have been having 2 projects in Norway. We have had student mobility, staff mobilities. We have had joint supervision. We have had educational training among school children in Jaffna. We have had infrastructure development of University of Jaffna. We are building a new clean energy lab there. Thank you to the University of Jaffna providing us some funds, and the Ministry of Higher Education as well in Sri Lanka. They have provided us some funds to build it. And thanks to the Norwegian Embassy for providing us equipments. And we will be opening it on Friday in Jaffna. So we have had a lot of dissemination activities as well. There are some glimpses here. These are students from Sri Lanka. They were in Norway at hvl. And the important thing is they get exposure to an international environment, other type of laboratories and so forth. It is very important in research. And what are we working on? Yes, as I said, it is very important that we work on affordable clean energy technologies. In that sense, we had to work on other type technologies. So we thought that we had to consider new nanomaterials which can be used to produce lightweight and flexible solar cells which can be placed wherever, maybe on the doorsteps, maybe on the walls, maybe on your t-shirts, on jackets, and so forth. So we are working on this. We are working on nanomaterials, and we synthesize, and we do simulations as well. At the same time, we see there's in Sri Lanka as well. We had a lot of meetings yesterday in Sri Lanka. We see that we need some storage capacities. So one of the solutions may be hydrogen. Hydrogen and batteries, of course, but hydrogen may be a solution. Then, of course, we have to work with nanomaterials. So that of course, we intend to do. So maybe in the future, we'll work on hydrogen as well. We have some enterprises. We have 14 enterprises from Norway here. Some of these companies are working with hydrogen. So I hope that this will lead to more hydrogen-related research in Sri Lanka in collaboration with Norway. And we have had a lot of seminars in Norway and in Sri Lanka and in India. We had a conference, and I'm thankful to the University of Jaffna that they have worked with us to make a new master degree curriculum in clean energy technologies at University of Jaffna. So it will be great, I think. And we'll be opening this clean energy lab at University of Jaffna on Friday. And I think I am very proud that Jaffna Science Association joined hands with University of Jaffna and HVL to have educational training for the young children in Jaffna. It is very important that we educate the children already when they are when they go in 9th grade, 10th grade, and so forth, so that they have an awareness on clean energy technologies. In that sense, they must have some hands-on experience. They must work with the cells. They must work with fuel cells and so forth. So that, of course, we were able to do in Jaffna. We had a campaign. Nearly 2,700 students took part in these activities. And finally, what is the objective of this delegation? We have a delegation. They are visiting Sri Lanka for the past 1 week, from 5th of May. So what are our objectives? First, the objective is to know the ground situation in Sri Lanka, to get some in-depth knowledge on what are the regulations are in Sri Lanka and so forth. So we had some fruitful meetings yesterday, and we got a lot of information. So that is, we are very much thankful for all the organizations which we met yesterday. And the second important objective is to establish an arena to present the Norwegian and Sri Lankan private sector working on clean energy technologies such as solar, wind, and hydrogen. That is the second objective. The third is to facilitate a meeting place for academia and private sector in the field of clean energy technologies. The fourth is to facilitate and motivate the private sector and universities from Norway and Sri Lanka to initiate future partnerships. We can have, as I said, we can have your projects at our universities, and we could send our students to your place. So we must have some joint ventures, some MOUs, and so forth. So today is the starting day. I hope that we will have a database of these companies who are here, and you all have got this pamphlet. All the information of the Norwegian companies are here. So now it is possible for the private sector here in Sri Lanka to contact our counterparts in Norway, vice versa. And the universities could have some discussions later on. And I hope that in the future, we will be able to establish a research consortium, which consists of not only the academia, but the private sector as well. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Yes. Without further ado, I have the pleasure of inviting Dr. Tilak Siambalapitiya.
Good morning. President, Sri Lanka Energy Managers Association, Honorable Minister Iran Vikramaratne, members of the head table, the Norwegian delegation, and colleagues from Sri Lanka, officials, ladies and gentlemen. The task assigned to me over the next 10 minutes is to discuss about opportunities, and I added the word constraints just to allow me to throw some light on the limitations as well. So over the last day or two, you may have already gathered certain amounts of information about the history of renewable energy development in the country. Sri Lanka started off with a small power producer program, entirely private sector driven, starting off in 1996, and started off with a feed-in tariff for any form of renewable energy, and the tariff was technology neutral. And to encourage the private sector to come in, the agreement was also standardized and non-negotiable. And this encouraged, in fact, Sri Lanka is one of the first few countries in the developing world to have such a relaxed power purchase agreement and a standardized feed-in tariff, non-negotiable, same price to everybody, same contract to everybody, which finally resulted in the 200 plus small power developers, almost all of them medium and small scale investors, building almost 560 megawatt of small hydro, wind, solar PV and biomass facilities, which enabled Sri Lanka to meet the target of 10% of renewable energy written into the policy document just in the last decade, and the target was reached in 2015. And presently we are hovering around 11%, excluding the contribution from large hydroelectric power plants. The outlook for the small power producer program is that the program has now been modified so that only small hydro, biomass and waste to energy will remain in the feed-in tariff program, while wind and solar PV have now been moved to competitive bidding. This is usually expected. The same transition happened in many countries. When a technology establishes itself, investors and their lenders and policymakers and utilities gain experience on the technology, and then, to be fair with the electricity customer, larger projects are now moving into the feed-in out of the feed-in tariff regime into the competitive bidding regime. In addition to that, Sri Lanka allowed a net metering from any form of renewable source of energy starting from 2008, but actually operational from 2010, where Sri Lanka offered the grid to be a free bank for any form of renewable energy to be produced, banked with the grid and used anytime you want. And of course, Sri Lanka's unusual household tariff structure caused the early takers to be only the large households, now passing about 10,000 in number of people who have rooftop solar in their houses. Since 2016, a buyback price has been introduced. So therefore, you may sell all the energy from your rooftop solar. The buyback price is only for rooftop solar, whereas the net metering facility was allowed for any form of renewables. So as a result of this, we have about more than 100 megawatt and rising very fast already in operation in solar rooftops. Many of you would have seen this picture. No need to explain it quite a lot. Sri Lanka's wind energy potential is concentrated on the northwestern coastal belt from Puttlam up to Mannar, onwards to Punarine, and almost many areas of the western flank of the Jaffna Peninsula. In the central hills, you see the purple areas are widespread, but then wind velocity itself does not mean that there is a proportional amount of energy in these regions where the air density is lower than in the coastal regions. Solar resource is also similar. Sri Lanka has a good solar resource atlas, which is published and available to anybody. Again, focused and concentrated on the northwestern zones of the country, as well as the southeast, as well as in the east. Largely dominated by the fact that these regions are relatively cloud-free, whereas the western zone, although there is solar potential available, is not as good as the circled zones that you see in this picture. So where does Sri Lanka go from here? Where are the opportunities? The outlook, as I see it, as an energy sector professional, not from a government, not necessarily from a government point of view, is that the remaining small hydro and any new biomass waste to energy projects will continue to be based on feed-in tariff, just to give the benefit of the innovation and the risks that the developers will have to take in continuing with these types of renewable energy technologies. Small hydro is very site specific. Biomass has, in biomass, getting the feedstock is a challenge. Waste to energy is a challenge in itself. And I would observe that the progress is relatively slow, particularly in the last few years on these three technologies. Whereas wind and solar, looking at it, what the government has initiated, seems to be moving on competitive bidding. But is it going to remain as an option for small power developers, which in the Sri Lankan legal and technical jargon, small means less than 10 megawatt. There is a policy target for 20% of renewable energy by 2020 and another policy target of 30% of renewable energy for electricity generation by 2030. And this is excluding the large hydros, which are already providing up to 40% of electricity in Sri Lanka. So we do observe that Norway is almost 100% hydro, but Norway is also, when I teach my students, Norway ranks the highest in terms of per capita electricity consumption. A Norwegian uses 25,000 units of electricity every year, whereas a Sri Lankan uses just 700. So 25,000 versus 700 is the comparison between Norway and Sri Lanka. I'm sure Norway has very good reasons to use such an amount of energy and almost all of it renewable because of the very harsh weather during most of the period, most of the year in Norway. Whereas in Sri Lanka, most of us can manage even without air conditioning. So this is the situation. So projects for larger scale for wind and solar PV, which way are we going? To me, it is in fact a little bit uncertain as to what the government's thinking is, but depending on, of course, the capacity that would be offered for the developers, firstly depends on the capability of the grid to absorb renewable energy and to continue to remain stable. You all know Sri Lanka is an isolated grid, and it is already experiencing delays of implementing the baseload power generation. And Sri Lanka also has been talking for a long time about an interconnection to India, which has not happened yet. And of course, given that fact, even if we get interconnected, South India is already surplus in renewable energy right now until their demand grows further. So about 900 megawatt of renewable energy, you may have already seen, is already included in the long-term plan of the utility until 2022. So from this year to 2022, the utility says if the demand grows and if the baseload power plants also come in, the grid can absorb and support 900 megawatt of renewable energy capacity on top of what is already in operation. So most likely the next phase of wind power and solar power development would be in designated parks as I see in terms of the announcements coming from the government, possibly managed by a government entity. So it was to be that the Mana wind power development zone was to be managed by a government entity and given out to the private sector, but owing to various limitations, I believe it is going to be a utility's own power generation, but there may be other wind and solar development zones further north. The Sustainable Energy Authority would tell us that the wind and solar zone is being studied at the moment further north. So therefore, it is most likely that a government entity would manage the zone and give out parcels of land on which most of the land matters would be cleared to the private sector to bid on a competitive basis to build this capacity of both wind and solar. So that ends my presentation, and of course if there is a question time later on in the next session, perhaps some relevant questions may be taken at that time. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for giving us that very effective presentation on possibilities and opportunities in Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, on this very special occasion, to speak to you right now is the only lady who's probably going to be talking to all of us during the inaugural session. Ladies and gentlemen, she is the first rector of the newly merged Western Norway University of Applied Sciences. She has a PhD in nursing science and extensive experience as head of educational institutions. She was appointed pro-rector and vice-rector for education at UIB before becoming the rector of hvl. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure in inviting Rector Berit Rockney.
Honorable Minister, Vice Chancellor, Your Excellency, Mr. Ambassador, friends and colleagues. It is a great honor for me, as Rector of Western Norway University of Applied Sciences, HVL for short, to be here today to witness the establishment of the Norway-Sri Lanka Research Consortium on Clean Energy Technologies and to open this seminar on clean energy. It is a great pleasure for me to experience in person the results of the efforts of so many talented and dedicated people who have worked night and day to make this happen. With the support from the government in both countries, hvl and partners have been able to establish and develop a future-oriented clean energy cooperation, which include both research and educational activities between Norwegian and Sri Lankan universities, as well as partnerships with enterprises in both countries. The cooperation has grown to encompass a range of clean energy initiatives with potential to impact the lives of people in both countries. The UN's 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development has identified 17 developmental goals, the SDGs. Through our cooperation, we address several of these goals and contribute to achieve them. For instance, goal number 7 is to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable and modern energy for all. Energy is central to nearly every major challenge and opportunity the world faces today, be it for jobs, security, climate change, food production, or increasing incomes. Access to energy for all is essential, both to maintain and to increase people's quality of life. Sustainable energy is opportunity. It transforms lives, economies, and the planet. To succeed with innovative clean energy technologies, it is important that the private sector and the research institutions work together. Present here today are 14 Norwegian and more than 40 Sri Lankan enterprises who in different ways work within the field of renewable energy. Together with the researchers and students from both countries, this network of enterprises has the potential to be a driving force in facing the challenges, seeing the opportunities, and come up with solutions for the benefit of our common future. During today's seminar and the days to come, I look forward to learn more about these challenges and opportunities and how they can be addressed and solved. I would like to thank the Royal Norwegian Embassy and the Sri Lanka Energy Managers Association for supporting this initiative, and with these words, I am proud to be a part of the opening of this seminar. So good luck with the seminar.
Thank you very much, Madam Rector, for that very inspirational address. I now would like to invite our next speaker, who started his work at the University of Jaffna. In fact, he also graduated there in 1972 with a PhD in numerical analysis from the University of Sussex, UK in 1991. He worked at the Eastern University as lecturer, and he was the senior lecturer in mathematics. He joined the University of Jaffna in 2004, and he was the head of the Department of Mathematics, and that was also in 2006 and 2009. And after that, again in 2013 up to 2016, he was promoted as the head of the associate and also he from the Department of Associate and also the professor in mathematics in 2009. And he served as the dean, faculty of science from 2016, and he was appointed as the vice chancellor of the Jaffna University in 2017, and he's been there since then. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure in inviting Professor Vigneshwaran, Vice Chancellor of the University of Jaffna, to address you all.
Rector of the Western University of Applied Science, Berit Rockney, and the Honorable Ambassador of Norway, and the Professor Dayalan Vilayatapillai, Project Coordinator, Western University of Applied Sciences, and Mr. Ronald Homester, President, Sri Lanka Energy Manager Association, and Norwegian delegates, Sri Lankan delegates, and ladies and gentlemen. Western Norway University of Applied Sciences and University of Jefna jointly secured Norwegian Partnership Program for Global Academic Cooperation, NOPAD, grant up to 4.7 million Norwegian kroners, is about 85 million Sri Lankan rupees, over the period of 5 years from 2017 to 2021, under the theme of higher education and research collaboration on nanomaterials for clean energy technologies. Only 21 out of 114 eligible project applications have been selected for funding by Norwegian Center for International Cooperation in Education. In addition, Royal Norwegian Embassy in Sri Lanka has funded hvl 6.2 million Norwegian kroners, is about 112 million Sri Lankan rupees, over a period of 3 years, 2013 to 19, for a project on capacity building and establishment of research consortium in nanomaterials for clean energy technologies. The main objective of the project is to strengthen the collaboration between the partner institutions. Those are Western University of Applied Sciences, University of Asker and Bergen, Norway, Coimbatore Institute of Technology, India, and University of Pennsylvania, in education and research activities, and implement student and staff mobility within the field of clean energy technology. The main objective of the project funded by the Royal Norwegian Embassy is to strengthen the existing collaboration between the partner institutions in the field of nanomaterials for energy technologies, and to establish a clean energy consortium that includes private enterprises from Norway and Sri Lanka. In March 2013, a high-level delegation from the Western University of Applied Sciences, including the Vice Chancellor of HVL, visited and signed a MOU and collaborative agreement with the University of Jefna. On 7th of July 2017, the project coordinator, Professor Ravarajan, and Professor Dayalan Vilayatapillai signed an institutional technical assistant contract on capacity building and establishment of a research consortium in nanomaterials for clean energy technologies. In relation to above project, at the Royal Norwegian Embassy in Colombo, in the presence of the Norwegian ambassador, this collaboration initiative will be funded by the Royal Norwegian Embassy, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Norway, as part of its development cooperation program. So under this collaborative program, the main activities in 2017 carried out the following marine activities carried out: development of master degree curriculum in clean energy technologies, research on nanomaterials for clean energy technologies, in-depth analysis of energy policies, and staff and student mobilities between Western University, University of Applied Science, Norway,
University of Jaffna, and Coimbatore Institute of Technologies. Outreach activities, more than 2,600 students in Jaffna district were trained on clean energy technologies at zonal education level. Among that, 50 students undergone advanced training on fabricating solar cells and building phone chargers, and procured the sophisticated equipments and lab items. Recruitment of research students. 5 research students were recruited at University of Jaffna. An international conference will be held at University of Jaffna in January 2019. High amount of dissemination of activities. We conducted workshops, interviews, and publication, 3 publications held. Active involvement of the private sector to join research consortium. Involvement of expertise in capacity building at University of Jaffna. So these are the activities held in 2017 at University of Jaffna. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to address you all now is a personality who has had a very illustrious diplomatic career. And without further ado, I would like to invite the Ambassador of Norway in Sri Lanka, His Excellency Torbjørn Gaustad-Sæther, to address you all.
Thank you very much and good morning. Honorable Minister, Honorable State Minister of Finance, Eran Vikramaratne, ladies and gentlemen, participant delegates, it is a great pleasure for me to address you at this Clean Energy Seminar, gathering academics, researchers and private sector from Sri Lanka and Norway. And I think it's the first time in the history that we have 14 companies in the energy sector gathered in Colombo. So I think there's actually an applause for that would be nice. I'm also happy that you could make it, Honourable Minister, because you have a very busy schedule with Parliament reopening and everything, so I'm also happy to see that you could be with us this morning. All nations are vulnerable to climate change, but generally developing countries are even more vulnerable and less resilient with limited investment in adaptation. The situation calls for the need to invest more in both mitigation and adaptation. And that is why this is a top priority in the Norwegian foreign policy. And this is also why we take an interest in this event. A primary lesson we have learned over the last several decades of research collaboration is that knowledge sharing and partnerships underpin successful operations. This is why we continue to support knowledge initiatives which highlights success stories and experiences in promoting low-carbon development and investment. We are at the verge of an era with smarter and cleaner technologies available for all areas of the economy and society. Falling technological costs have made renewables far more competitive today than ever before. Introducing more renewables in your energy mix eventually decreases energy prices, and it leads to cleaner air, enhances security of supply, and creates jobs. As such, it can help make countries healthier and wealthier. Sri Lanka has a highly educated and skilled workforce and a professional private sector, and some of them are here today. It makes perfect sense for Sri Lanka to take advantage of these opportunities and reap its renewable and energy efficiency potential. For the energy transformation to happen, it is clear that significant investments have to be made. Of course, there has to be a business case to invest and a reason to buy and use these renewable energy and energy-efficient technologies. We also recognize that government may not be able to ensure these investments from public funds alone. The private sector can, and I understand, is willing to play an important role. One of the key aspects for private sector investment is a sound and consistent policy and regulatory environment. Therefore, as a matter of priority for the country, it is important to create an enabling environment for low-carbon technologies and investments. I'm aware that there are technical challenges as well as institutional challenges facing government. In this age of digitization, modern technology and innovation is here to stay. Therefore, it is far better to embrace and be ahead of the curve than be left behind. Sri Lanka has the resources to be part of a carbon-neutral future. Norway, with its solid base of expertise in renewable energy and environmental technology, coupled with excellent universities and strong clusters, science parks, and business incubators, has become a leading technology provider in this area. The main energy resource in Norway is hydropower, but in addition, Norway has become a solar power pioneer and has vast wind energy resources, both onshore and offshore. The world's first floating wind turbine has been in operation 10 kilometers off the coast since 2009. Norway is utilizing the knowledge and experience from offshore oil fields and maritime operations for future offshore wind power development. Therefore, Norway can offer new technology.
Session moderator, I have to invite him. He did speak to you during the inauguration. So without further ado, I have the pleasure of inviting Dr. Tilak Siyabalapiti. Everybody, put your hands together for a round of applause.
Thank you very much. We are slightly ahead of time, but still I think we can take that as a benefit to the upcoming session. So we have a total of 6 presentations, and each presenter will be spending about 10 minutes for his presentation. So, and at the end we will have a Q&A session, so reserve all your questions about this session and other issues on solar PV to the end of the session. So let me invite first Mr. Osmundsen, representing Empower New Energy SATEC. He will be presenting on empowering decentralized renewables, innovative financing solutions. So his background and experience is available in the brochure. So to save time, I would allow the audience to read your background.
Thank you very much. And first of all, good morning, everybody. And I will say it is an honor to be here and be able to share some lessons in this very qualified assembly of experts, people from different backgrounds. I think we have some interesting things to discuss. Let me first clarify, although the presentation is made there, that there is a small error. I have a background as a responsible for business development in Scatec, but right now I'm representing Empower New Energy. So that is to clarify a possible misunderstanding. What I'm going to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, is 2 things. First, I'm going to introduce an innovative approach to financing decentralized renewables, which is done by the company Empower New Energy. And then I will try to relate that to the electricity challenge in Sri Lanka. But let me start with a very important insight. Current policies in the world, even assuming all the pledges that have been made after the Paris Agreement, leads to a 3-degree warming. We are heading towards a 3-degree society in the second half of this century. And I think no one of us wants to do business, raise our children, see our societies evolve in a 3-degree society. So we surely have, thank you. So we surely all have both a responsibility and an opportunity to actually move further, because the current path is clearly unsustainable for our future. The second message is, and it was recently confirmed in a new report from IRENA, the UN organization, is that we have the solutions in hand. We don't need to wait for hydrogen or wait for carbon sequestration or wait for other things. We have renewables and we have energy efficiency. And renewables and energy efficiency can deliver 90% of all emissions which will be required to the energy sector by 2050. So the solutions are at hand. We just need to deploy them. And the third message is that renewable energy is going to win because increasingly countries are discovering that renewable energy is a job booster. This today, there was a new news from IRENA saying that the number of direct employed in the renewable energy industry worldwide is now past 10 million people. And it is rising very rapidly. So one reason why, of course, this is coming is not only due to the Paris commitment, but also because it creates jobs. In Empower New Energy, we have, and my experience from having been responsible for developing 400 megawatt of solar in South Africa and now 300 megawatt in Egypt and other countries, is that large-scale solar and large-scale wind is good, but it is not going to solve the crisis. The crisis, the opportunity must be solved by combining the large scale with hundreds, thousands of distributed renewables. And that is the business mission of Empower New Energy, to make sure that the finance also is being available for the distributed company, the distributed regeneration. What we are doing is that, we are developing a solution which is innovative and unique by the sense that we are setting up a platform for standardized due diligence and standardized review of these projects so that they can be finance ready without going years and without the millions of development, which is currently the situation. We standardize the process. Then what we do is that we're setting up an accelerator fund, an investment vehicle that will finance these projects as they are ready within our scope of jurisdictions. And then we will tap into climate finance and green bonds for refinancing of the projects. By doing these things combined, we can bring down the financing costs for distributed renewables, and we can make the distributed revolution happen. So we are a team of 5 people today with very varied experience from both finance, legal, and execution and development. And we are working with the Norfund and other financial investors, private investors in Norway, and we will be ready for investing in Sri Lanka next year. And our value proposition is to actually then offer developers and off-takers a possibility to save money and become green without having to use own sources. And our ambitions are very high. We plan that these investments over a 10-year period will contribute significantly to the realization of the impact development goals. So, what has this to do with Sri Lanka energy situation? Well, I think it has a lot to do, because first of all, I must say that I have been very encouraged and passionate, and it was really very amazed by the ambition set by the government of Sri Lanka to target 100% renewable electricity sector in 2050. This is fantastic and very important, but the problem I must share with you is that when I as an outsider follow what's happening in Sri Lanka, I'm wondering whether actually short-term decisions may fundamentally undermine the long-term goal. Because what we see now is that there is a growing, mounting pressure in Sri Lanka, as in many other countries, by the way, to continue to do what we have been doing, which is building more coal. And what I would say is that the opportunity you have in Sri Lanka is to avoid the disaster that happened to utilities in Europe and partly in North America. What did Europe experience? Yes, they experienced that the value of the utilities were reduced by more than 100 billion euros over years because the utilities did not in time discover that they needed to invest in renewables. And they had to discover that coal plants, gas plants were actually stranded assets in competition with ever cheaper renewables. The same thing in North America. If countries now embark on a path to build new coal, I'm pretty confident that those projects will prove to be fundamentally uneconomic as we see the price patterns evolve in the future. So because the cost of renewables have dropped dramatically, and it will continue to drop dramatically. If you look at this figure here, what does it show? The blue dots are what they call levelized cost of electricity for solar PV and onshore wind. The red dots are what have been obtained in auctions worldwide, in India, in South Africa, in Mexico, and other places. And as you see, already today, the cost of new solar PV is actually, and then you see the line there up here, you see that the cost of coal in 2017, as estimated by the utility board, is now around in that level, as you see here, which is around about $13 per kilowatt hour, all in all. That is today higher than what is been bid in various auctions. And then you can ask, if you look 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, how many people think coal is going to be cheaper than it is today? Anybody think coal is going to be cheaper? I haven't met anybody. How many people think renewables are going to be cheaper 5 and 10 years from today? Exactly. So why do you make decisions to build something today that already today is uncompetitive, when in 5 to 10 years it is certainly going to prove to be far uneconomic compared to the alternatives? And so my advice would be rather to learn from the European experience, avoid stranded assets, recognize that baseload is a concept that have served well in the past. In the future, we are talking more about balancing of sources and decentralized grids. And one thing I would also like to add is that beyond 2020, what we do know is that there is going to be a cost of CO2. And there's not only going to be a cost of CO2, but there's also going to be a market for countries buying carbon emissions. So if Sri Lanka can now prepare for that, you will not only be renewable and obtain savings in fuel, but you will also be able to sell your savings in the international market by countries who actually need those CO2 savings. So if you look to the future, and I think this is also where Empower Solution comes in, that the future is a mixture of hundreds of thousands of various solutions, decentralized with various sources, smart grids, storage at various levels, and then that way you can actually manage the intermittency of renewables, and you can obtain a very robust grid. Not in one day, not in 1 year, but certainly over the period we are talking about here, which is 10, 15, 20 years. Looking at Sri Lanka, there's also one opportunity that I would like to mention, which is now being studied in a number of countries, and that is, why not see how you can balance hydropower with renewables? In Sri Lanka, you have reservoirs of hydro. Well, it is perfectly possible today, like in Egypt. I've been personally involved in this. What we did in Egypt was that we developed a 2 gigawatt solar plant next to the Aswan Dam, so that the Aswan hydro resources can be saved that day and the solar feed into the grid at that time. So this way, the value of the Aswan Dam has been significantly increased because they can use hydropower in evenings and solar at the day. And my question, when you look at Sri Lanka, isn't that also a solution you can do? See how you can actually optimize your infrastructure so that you can save your water resources to evenings when the sun is not shining. So there are many opportunities, and the benefits of decentralized generation is that you avoid transmission bottlenecks and cost, You also obtain frequency and voltage stabilization. You obtain more employment. You reach higher security of supply. You don't need to burden the government with sovereign guarantees, and there is a very short time to market. So there are many reasons why countries should go for decentralized renewables. And what can governments do to promote? Cost-reflective tariff, yes, you have, very good. CO2 pricing, I understand it's in process. Net metering, yes, you have it. What I'm still understand is not confirmed is whether you actually have regulations in Sri Lanka that enables companies to actually buy from captive power purchase agreement, from IPPs. This should come and will certainly lead to a significant boost in those investments.
Thank you very much for the illuminating presentation on decentralized renewable energy. Now it's the opportunity for Norsk Solar, and Mr. Arvind Solheim will make the presentation on behalf of the company.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you and have the possibility to tell you about what Norsk Solar is doing in Sri Lanka. My name is Arvid Solheim. I've been in this country for almost 2 years now, so I'm starting to get a certain idea of the power sector and the energy challenges in this country. I represent the Norsk Wind Group, which is Norsk Solar is a part of the Norsk Wind Group. It's the biggest private producer of renewable energy in Norway. They have a number of companies in the renewable sector. Norsk Solar is a relatively newly started company exploring possibilities for building solar parks in a number of countries in the world. You see on the map United States, Nicaragua, Pakistan, Ukraine, Sri Lanka, Vietnam are on different stages of development right now. And we have high ambitions of growing rapidly. In this country, we think that Norsk Solar can participate in building renewable energy both on land and on floating. I'll come back to the floating issue. The need for renewable energy, we have been talking, the Norwegian guests, we discussed this lengthy yesterday, why there is such a strong need for renewable energy in this country. And we have been talking about earlier today. You know that Sri Lanka had a high reliance on hydropower. That hydropower is not reliable anymore. It's the water is coming erratically. Climate change means that the rainfall might be the same, but it comes on odd times. And last year we had a terrible drought, and I think that hydropower that year was down to 10–15% of the production of electricity in the country. So oil and coal becomes extremely important. You know, consequences of oil and coal, there are emissions, of course, there are health issues around the coal plant. Renewables can solve this. Also, a problem with the imported resources of fossil fuels. They are expensive. We cannot expect oil prices to fall. They might increase. Gas prices are low now. They might increase. And the CEB, the utility, is having a terrible deficit because they have to pay a lot for the oil they need to burn for producing electricity. Why is there a growing need? There is an estimated growth of the need of electricity, or the demand of electricity in the country, of 5.9%. And 95% of the households in the country are connected to the grid, and they all want more air conditioning, they want more fans, they want more television sets or whatever. And there is industry, some industry is being built, so the need is there. We need more power. And there is a national target of getting to 70% renewables within 2030. That's a short time. Today we have, there is a development that has started. There are 55 maybe megawatt utility scale solar plants in the country, and more are being planned. There is 128 megawatt of wind power, and the successful rooftop solar program, which is building, I think there is 150 companies building rooftop solar in the country. They are definitely contributing to resolving the energy problem. Our speciality, our special solution is floating solar, because that has so many advantages compared to traditional solar power. One of the advantages, most important maybe in a densely populated country like Sri Lanka, is that you don't have these conflicts over land. You don't use agricultural land or housing land or coconut plantations for solar plants. Another thing is that you, when you put floaters, as we see on this picture, which is it's a small plant, if you cover a larger part of the surface of a reservoir or an irrigation dam with floaters, you reduce the evaporation of water from the surface, and you cool down the panels. When panels are cooled down, you increase efficiency, you increase the production of electricity 7 to 11%. I read somewhere that in a country like Sri Lanka, you lose up to 1 cubic meter per square meter of water through evaporation in a year. That's a lot of water that could be used for hydropower. You also have other minor advantages, that when you have more shade on the water, you have less growth of plants in the water, which is a problem in shallower reservoirs. And of course, there is little effect to the terrain. You don't have to dig up, you don't have to change the landscape. There are some disadvantages, of course. It's a little bit more expensive. Currently, some say about 25% more expensive than putting it on land, but this cost is going down rapidly. Experiences from different countries are showing that it can be pushed down maybe all the way to maybe 11% more expensive only. There are some problems, of course, if there is a rich fishing activity in the reservoir or the tank or the dam, but that it should be possible to find ways around that. Apart from that, I haven't been able to find any negative environmental impacts of floating solar. There are a lot of hydropower stations in this country that might be suitable for floating solar, and the Mahaveli Authority has a long-term goal of building 100 megawatt floating. I've spoken to them several times. They haven't really been able to put this into action, but possibilities are there. When floating solar is built on a hydropower reservoir, you have the possibility of using the same infrastructure that is there for the production of hydropower. The substation, the grid connection, these things. You have a win-win situation. So we are building a pilot project in the country, 50 kilowatt in a place called Gamanpila in Bandaragama. That's about 30 kilometers from here. It will be donated to the government. by Sri Lanka Sustainable Energy Authority. And we are investing about $100,000 in this, but we also have had some help from the government, NORAD, Innovation Norway, and the Research Council. It will produce about 75,000 kilowatt per year, and that will be enough, that will generate enough income so the Sustainable Energy Authority can maintain the installation for the next 20 years. And we will also put a battery in this, so not to cover the full effect of the plant, but enough to at least power some street lights in the surrounding area. The tank is called Gammanpila, as I mentioned. It's a fairly small tank, shallow tank, 30 kilometers from here on the main road. So it's easy to access. It will be easy to bring people there to see how floating solar is working. So there you see a sketch of the design. They will use cheap elements for floating. It shall be, as we say, off the shelf in non-corrosive drinking water compliant material, so it can be put on drinking water reservoirs or whatever. It shall be a flexible structure, so tilt can be changed according to need. And we will build it with a floating, like a barge, where the inverter and the guard and whatever can be placed. So where are we now? The government is very positive. We have presented a pre-feasibility study. The Sustainable Energy Authority is giving it a preliminary approval. We have a problem with the National Land Reclamation Corporation, which should do a renovation of the tank, but they haven't really done it yet, but they say it will be done soon. The design, everything is going to be ready in a month or two. Permits and clearances, it's an obstacle in Sri Lanka, of course, but I think we are on good way to get everything cleared. So we should be able to start working in the field in August and test it maybe in September. One thing I would ask finally here to the researchers present, we need to get into, look into how we can maximize the benefits of having floating solar on hydropower reservoir. As Terje mentioned, the win-win solution of combining solar power and hydropower is it's a Colombo egg, as we say. There are so many synergies. So we are looking into possibilities to invent a research program where we look into these synergies, control systems and so forth, and see which benefits are there. Okay, thank you very much. I hope you found this interesting.
Thank you very much for the interesting presentation. Reserve your questions for the question time. Now we have Mr. Torje Olset presenting on behalf of REC Solar and Elkem Solar. There's a time counter that will appear here. Okay. We'll give you your timing. All right.
How do I find it? Yes. Okay, so thank you for the opportunity to present at this forum. I'm representing REC, which is a Norwegian-based manufacturer of solar panels in Singapore. So, and since panels are what we do. I'd like to start by pointing out that although they all look the same, it's actually quite big differences. This is our product range from different areas, from the small 60-cell modules, which are mostly used here. In Sri Lanka, our estimate is that we have about a 20% market share in the housing rooftop market, and that's mainly due to our twin peak 275, 285 watt peak modules. We have other utility modules in 72 cells for other applications, which are used in different ways. What's very exciting for us this year is that we are actually introducing our first monocrystalline module. It will be an N-type module with very high efficiencies. 60-cell module with 330 watt peak. It will be one of the highest energy densities available in the market in the world. And we are expecting to have that in the market from the second half this year. As I said, we are producing the modules in Singapore, but the value chain in the solar energy field is actually quite long. We start by producing our silicon metal in Norway, take it through the casting to blocks, partly in Norway, partly in Singapore, and then we have the integration of wafer, cell, and module all in the facility in Singapore, with currently about 1.5 gigawatt capacity, all in one unit, all under one management, and in a total quality control that is repetitive and demonstrated over time. We come back to that. Just want to show you our facility in Norway, where we're actually making the silicon. It's a proprietary process. We are producing it by metallurgical method. We are the only company in the world doing it this way. And that gives us the lowest carbon footprint in the industry. We are using about 1/4 of the energy per kilo of silicon that our competitors in the polysilicon section of the business are using. Just to show you briefly the process, we are going through a lot of purification steps to meet the high purity needed for the solar grade silicon. From the plant in Kristiansand, we go to our REC plant in Herøya, also in Norway, where there is block production being done. And the blocks from there are then transferred to our facility in Singapore. It's quite a large facility, has been gradually increased in capacity since it started in 2010. And when at that time with about 700 megawatt capacity, now more than double in these years. So it's been a quite exciting journey, and quite, as you all know, the industry is under constant pressure to reduce cost, and we have been able to do that by all the time increasing our efficiency and productivity. Just a little bit about the spread of the REC. We are a worldwide company, and here in Sri Lanka, we are represented by our sales office in India and our local partner. There are quite a few companies using our modules for installations in this country. So just to show you some different applications from the utility, the commercial rooftops, and the residential. We have, as I said in the beginning, we have different modules for the different areas of application. Some key features, we used to be duty-free, thanks to Donald Trump. We are no longer that. We experienced, together with all other producers, a 30% import tariff into US this year, which is actually quite dramatic, influencing the industry at the moment. Apart from that, we are making high-quality modules where we are focusing especially on the high efficiency, especially for this country, we have a low temperature degradation due to special design of modules, which are very important. We will see more of the effect of that later. And it was also mentioned as one of the benefits of the floating PV system. So we will demonstrate that. I was asked earlier today, how do we sort of guarantee or show our quality? One of the most striking feature that we can actually document is our claim rate. And that is measured as something called the PPM, which is how many modules come back as a claim per million of modules you produce. We have tracked this over the years. We are currently below 50 ppm on our claim rates. It means that for the 5 million modules we produce a year, less than 300 comes back as a claim. This is a documented, the listed companies in the world, they have to document this in their annual reports and filings, and we can actually with quite confidence we can say that we are the lowest claim rate in the industry, which is our commitment to quality and long-term return for our customers. Another way we document our quality and efficiency is that we have a monitoring system, and where we are following the performance of solar parks with our modules in different parts of the world. This is done from a central, we call it a control room in Singapore, where we can see the effect. And I will show you one such effect. This is an installation in Hawaii, which is usually when you make a solar park, there is a PV syst simulation, gives you the expected output from that location and with the specific set of modules, inverters, and things. So what we can see is that in this particular installation, our actual output is quite clearly higher than the PV syst predictions. The PV syst is what's used by banks and investors as a way to document the expected return from this. So it's quite good to have a positive reference on that. I'll show you also some other reference cases. Maybe the most relevant for this location is the 72 megawatt plant in Thailand, which is a hot, humid environment, and where we have had good experience from this installation over many years. I will put some effort also in this Asia Pacific brewery. It's a special installation in Singapore, 2.2 megawatt on the roof of the Tiger Brewery, and we will see the effect and the values from this in the later presentations today. So that's you can just remember this installation when you see that. So, thank you very much.
So that was the third presentation of this session. The next presentation will be on behalf of Solbre. The presenter is Ms. Simona Petrosini.
Yeah, thank you for the warm welcome here in Sri Lanka. It's my first time here in Sri Lanka. It's been really, really nice visiting your country and get to know a bit more about your history and your society. My name is Simona Petroncini, and before I introduce you to Solbare, I'd like to tell you a bit, just a few words about myself. I founded Solbare in Norway. It's a PV photovoltaic company in Bergen, in Norway. Myself, I have a background in engineering, and in addition to that, I have a master's degree in environmental sustainability with focus within renewable energies. I got 20 years, I built up 20 years experience in the energy sector, starting from the oil and gas, very operational, moving on into electricity, hydropower in Norway, and the last 7 years I've been building up competence into and experience into the solar, the PV sector. Solbare. Solbare comes from, the name comes from, let's see here, yeah. The name comes from a Norwegian word. It means blackberry, and it stands for solar sustainable energy. We define us as a solar technology company based in Bergen on the west coast of Norway. And I'd like to share you a curiosity about Bergen. Bergen is the most rainy city in Europe. It rains about 2.5 meters of water per year and is affected by a very strong wind which is increasing every year. This due to climate change. Under these particular conditions, we build and commission PV systems that produce solar energy. What we do, we design PV system for customers' needs. We deliver, we make the installations, and we commission them. We define us as a hands-on company. We like, yes, words, but we like to realize PV systems. We are quite new. We are about, and young, we are about 2.5 years. But in these 2.5 years, we build a quite wide range of experience by building different type of PV. And here on your left side, you can see that we have the different experience we have is both on mounting, the inverters, and the type of modules we've been installing and projecting. Then on the left side, you see we're the first company on the West Coast that have introduced the integrated PV, like a PV that they have three functions. One is the roofing, they are tiles, they produce electricity, and they have the aesthetics. Usually women and architecture like this PV. The second picture in the middle is we were the first company on the west coast of Norway that have introduced the second generation of modules, the CIGS. And we got a bit of experience. We saw that they perform a bit differently from their big brothers, silicon crystalline PV. And we have also, we install PV solar module standard systems like the last picture on your right. And they are basically, in Norway, they are standard systems on flat roof, commercial flat roof. And here we basically use the REC modules, the one that has been just presented. Because we believe, and REC have shown you just now, that are of good quality. And for us, what is important and what we have focused on is customers, quality, safety, and innovation. We are here in Sri Lanka. It's our first time because we have a tight collaboration with the Western University, Western Norwegian University based in Bergen, and with the engineering departments. And in addition to that, we have a close collaboration with local businesses, local enterprises, local handcraft companies like electricians, roofers, builders, because we believe that by working together and building up competence together, we can increase and create a solid solar PV competence locally. Now our focus has been is the western coast of Norway, but we're here in Sri Lanka, and maybe it's possible to use our model here and working together both with the university, the technical schools, and your business and enterprises. So I will be here. The other thing, we're working a lot with innovations. So we are, yes, in the building sector, delivering to households and commercial, but we are also moving and investigating in other sectors that maybe you here in Sri Lanka could be interested in to know. So if I'm going to be here the rest of the day, and we're going to be in Sri Lanka until Sunday. So please, if you have any questions or you would like to, any curiosity about Sulbar and what we are doing, and if we can help you here, please get in touch with me. Yes. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. The next presentation will be on behalf of Sol Plus, and the presenter will be Mr. Ingvar Sotop. I hope I pronounced it reasonably correct. Okay.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ingvar Sotop. I'm the CEO of the Norwegian solar company Solplus AS. And I am in love. I'm in love with your beautiful country. I came Sunday, and since then, I totally get in love. For me as a Norwegian, though it's a little bit hot, so if you can turn off the temperature a couple of degrees, that would be nice for me. And this is what's important, to turn off the temperature, to stop the global heating. This is why I started the solar company, to do something. So let's stop the global warming together. Solplus is installing solar installations in Norway and Sweden. We make even buildings better looking than they are before the installations. This is solar panels over the facade. It's 1,400 panels installed in Gardermoen in Norway. This has been shown for the architect, and the architect from Japan, Germany, and also and many other countries has came to look at this project. And even in Spitsbergen, we have installed solar systems. And Spitsbergen is very close to the North Pole. And it's possible to use solar energy so close to the North Pole. It's possible everywhere. We are experts for finding solutions. This is on the mountains in Norway. And in the winter, all the panels are covered by 8 meters with snow. So we have some difficulties in Norway, but we always find solutions. And we can help finding solutions for solar projects, not only for plants and floating systems, but in existing and new buildings and projects. We have the acknowledgement for calculate the right technology, products, and installing materials and system. for even the most difficult project. I turn over to see what the solar industry can do. It's the solar industry and our company as well generate many employees, not just direct in the branch, but we can generate jobs in other branches as well. So the whole chain, we need to cover up the quality. And that's what we are doing in Norway, and that's what we are good at. It creates job. The solar industry creates jobs, reduce the carbon footprints, and it's in the future. And if we can do it in Svalbard and in the mountains in Norway, we can do it everywhere. So we are here to cooperate with anyone who wants it. We have the qualification and the competence for difficult installations. So we are ready to cooperate. Thank you.
Next will be the presentation from Current Solar by Mr. Ingvik.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Inge Vikesdal, and I'm the Managing Director of Current Solar. And like everyone before me, I must say it's a great pleasure to visit Sri Lanka. It's my first time as well. Hopefully not the last one. What we do is basically focusing on floating PV installations. And where we come from is we are actually trying to capitalize from a lot of research that's been done by REC Solar in Singapore. And we have a very tight and good collaboration with them. So there's been said a few things about floating PV technology, so I won't go into a lot of that, and the time won't allow. But this one is REC's test facility in Singapore. It's a 1 megawatt test site where they've tested different versions of floating solar PVs. And it's basically the knowledge that has come out of that what we have used to try to design the best possible solution going forward. So for us, it's been very important to focus on three things. And like it's been already told, the cooling effect from the water increases the efficiency in the panels. So that's one of the things we're really focused on. The second one, make it simple, keep costs down. In this game, cost is everything. And then the third thing has been, do not over-engineer it. Because we have a philosophy that our floaters, we would like them to be produced locally. To get some value added out from the country or the community where we actually are going to install this. So these three principles have been very important for us. So basically there are two systems today. There are either pontons or pipes. Our system is based on pipes. It gives the maximum of cooling from the water. To design a floating PV system, there is a lot of considerations in addition to what you have if you go terrestrial. So I won't go into all this now, but of course water conditions, currents, depth of water, etc., etc. And out from this, you